there be video? Let's pause the.
Oh, sure.
Hey. Wow, Smitty, cool background. Oh, he's still getting ready, trying to figure out what to wear.
Would you to put it on?
Yeah. Let's see here.
EQ Smitty, EQ Smitty.
That's a cool background there.
Oh, thank you.
Let's see
From a
here.
previous air show at Westfield.
Nice color plane.
Yeah.
Let's see here. That can be off. All righty. So is it cold enough for everybody?
Not quite, but it's getting there.
It's pretty chilly.
Well, let's put it this way. Does Smitty get shorts on?
Actually, I did wear long pants today, just
It's cold enough.
Really?
But I regretted wearing them. It wasn't really that cold today, but tomorrow I'm going
Well,
out
it
with
was
my
windy
sister.
though. It was windy.
Yeah, I'd call it brisk today.
I don't know. My weather station says it's 3 degrees, and with the wind chill, it feels like -11.
Yeah. Well, shorts I'm good to -20.
Oh, crazy.
Well, I saw him at the Mount Tom Hamfest one year, and he's wearing these shorts, and it's like, you high?
I took my wife to lunch at the airport today, and the assistant airport manager was there, and he made a comment about, oh, you know it's cold when Charlie's got long pants on. And then the receptionist made it worse because she said, it's the first time I've seen you with pants on. And the airport manager goes, too much information.
Oh my goodness. Well,
Yep.
dangerous. And do you find that I know you wear compression socks. Do you find they keep your legs warm? I mean, that's the one thing I've found.
They help, but not that much. Typically what I used to do when I was wearing my kilt, especially at -20, yeah, I would put cream, regular old hand cream and stuff on my moisturizer on my legs. And wind chill is evaporation. So if you put a decent amount of moisturizer, you're not getting the evaporation. So that helped a lot.
I picked up these legging things without the sock parts, and then I wear
Yep.
my smart wools over them, and finally my feet are warm because I can't.
Ah,
They just weren't keeping my legs warm enough, and doctor suggested I wear them. I don't have to wear them, but
yeah,
so especially when I sit around a lot, which is
yep,
sitting in front of the desk.
yeah. No, I'm good to about -20 wind chill. I've been out in when I used to have a wood stove, I go out to the wood pile barefoot in the snow. Just crazy. Shoveling shorts and a t-shirt.
Did you grow up in this area, or did you grow up somewhere
Yeah.
up north, like in
Yeah,
Maine or somewhere?
I grew up in this area, but I found out I've got a decent amount of Scot in me, which is why I probably have an affinity for kilts and stuff. But so yeah.
Ray is speechless.
Why do I picture him going to one of those meetings with bagpipes?
I started teaching myself, but it really annoyed the cats for a while.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody earlier today who, as a younger person, used to play bagpipes, but they've gotten away from it. But she said that she didn't like the fact that it sounded like screaming cats.
Yeah, yep. But good played bagpipes, so oh man, get a couple hundred pipers in the field and have them marching. That's real good for me. Yeah.
I'll tell you, it puts a lump in my throat when I hear them play Amazing Grace.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep. There's a lot of good, and the bagpipes are real hard to play because they never shut up. So you got to play like instead of just a C C C by just holding a longer C, you got to let go of the C and play an intermediate note in between them So you can break it down into, so you got quarter note, eighth notes, 16th notes. It's unreal. Yeah. But someday, still on my
Huh.
list. Yeah.
Well, you can come to field day and play taps and
Oh,
There
there
we
we
go.
go.
Yeah. Yep.
The antennas are coming down. Time for taps.
I can
Yeah.
see what Charlie would say if he heard that one morning when at sunrise or sunset.
Yeah.
Talk about reveille over there.
Yeah, that would
Oh
be
yeah.
funny as heck.
Sun's
Yeah.
rising, the bagpipes going. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Actually, we were doing a field day on top of Mount Wachusett. And we were doing our thing, doing our radio contacts, and all of a sudden I hear the sound. That sound like bagpipes. And yeah, there's this guy walking around the mountain all through the trails and everything, just playing his bagpipes.
Probably
Nice.
thought he was alone and nobody was around.
Nice. Yep.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Oh, and very smart about not holding the meeting tonight. It's going to be real cold by the time we would have been getting out of it.
You
But
know,
Yeah,
I pulled the board and it was close to 3-3 for and against,
yep.
and um, it was sort of 4-3 against, but it was just crazy.
Yeah.
I was up since 4 o'clock in the morning thinking about it. Should I cancel? Should I not cancel the in person?
I got 1 degree here.
Yeah. It was just smart. I mean,
Oh, I know. It's the right thing to do. And I
yeah.
get some people are ticked off that we're not meeting, but the hell with them. It's the what's good for the many versus what's
Yeah.
good for the one.
Yep. Yep. And it's going to be a Zoom meeting by the presenter
Anyways,
anyway.
right,
Yeah.
right. But
So it's
they
like,
wanted they want the social aspect of the meeting and seeing
oh
everybody
yeah.
and stuff.
Well, I want to go barefoot in the snow too, but not at minus 40 degrees. I tell people I'm crazy, not stupid.
That happened to me once during the ice storm of 2008. I was in the field with Comcast, and we were just hanging down drops.
Yeah.
I'm at a cemetery on the road alongside it, and I was on the pole trying to hang up a new drop, and it was cold. The wind was whipping. A couple weeks later, I went to scratch my ear, and it's like, "Oh, that feels funny." And sure enough, my ear had frostbite.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I actually used to wear Birkenstocks in the winter, but they got annoying because snow would get in between my foot and the Birkenstock, and the
And
Birkenstocks
freeze.
would keep. No, they kept on sliding off. I had to take 10 steps, put my Birkenstocks back on,
It's
and
crazy.
yep,
That's just absolutely crazy.
yep,
I
yep.
don't know. You can run around, if you want to run around your neighborhood barefoot, go right ahead.
Actually, it's too slick on the ice. It gets real slippery when your foot melts the ice a little bit. You fall down a lot, which is not good if you're wearing a kilt.
See, so what you got to ask Josue when he connects, ask him how he likes the weather. And then tell
Yeah.
him yeah. Josue, are you there?
Yes. How you
Okay,
doing?
so Smitty was just telling us how much he loves this cold weather. And for the first time in that we've ever known him, he's wearing long pants versus shorts.
Yep. I'm good at minus 20 in shorts, but when it's minus 30 or 40, I figured I'd put on long pants. Yep.
I will never get used to this.
No, I love it.
Well, those of
No
us that
frost.
live here will never get used to it
Yeah.
either. Well,
It's
Smitty, Josue came into his own when we were dying the day we were tearing down field day. And
okay.
every 20 minutes, we're all going over and getting a drink and taking a break. And we're like schwitzing like crazy. And Josue is like, what's wrong with this weather? This weather's great. And then back in where he grew up, he's used to this, but the rest of us were dying and it took us 3 times as long to get anything done.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, summer kicks my butt. Yeah.
Well, thankfully you're not wearing a mini skirt.
No, but It does get embarrassing with the long pants though. Um, I was at the grocery store and a cashier about 3 lanes down shouts out, "Oh, hey, Charlie, I didn't recognize you with your pants on."
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's I don't have a response for that. Hey Larry, your video is blurry. I don't know if you know that. Might be a good thing for you if that's the look you're looking for, but your video is blurry. Kind
I
of
don't know how that happens, why it happens.
if you
But
if is it a separate camera or is it in the laptop or desktop?
no, it's a separate camera sitting on top of the monitor right here.
You might have a little thing on the front where you can turn the lens to refocus it.
And if
Looking
it's a
at it
larger,
now, and I don't think so.
Oh, it just cleared up. That's
Oh,
bizarre.
really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I had to do is get close.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, Smitty, I like your plane.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's was an air show a couple years ago at Barnes. They're having another one in May. So,
In May they're having the air show.
yep. 13th and 14th.
Oh, that's interesting. That I mean, usually they hold it in like July.
Yeah, and they got a
or
lot of
August.
complaints about being so hot in August, so they figured they'd do it a
Oh,
little earlier and try to
out
get
on
before it
the
gets too hot.
tarmac. Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah.
That's interesting.
yeah. But you got to pay for parking this year. They've lost a lot of the parking lots either
Yeah.
on the field or off the field, so you got to reserve parking this year.
Reserve parking.
Well, you got to. The best thing is if you buy a ticket online on the day you know you're coming. That way, you definitely got a parking spot because they won't. I don't think they'll be selling them at the show. I think, or may not. I'm not sure.
I don't. That doesn't make sense because there's a lot of people that are going to come last minute with families and stuff, and you can't turn people away. Saying there's no, you don't have reserved parking.
Yeah,
And that's the best way to alienate everybody so they never come back.
yeah, yeah. So the problem is I've lost so much of the parking spots. They were going to be really hurting for parking this year. Because they used to use that field where they put up the solar array in Westfield, and another area of the airport, it now has hangars on it, and the third area that you still use is putting up a hangar, and there's just so much construction going on there, they're losing all the open space.
I don't. I'm trying to remember where I parked the last time I went, and I think my son was in Boy Scouts, so it was probably somewhere around 13, 14 years ago. And
Yeah.
I just vaguely remember parking in a big parking lot. I
Yeah.
don't remember where.
Last time I was at Barnes at the air show, you know that dirt road that goes right along the Interstate 90?
Yeah.
Or the Mass Pike?
Yep.
Right down there, they had that opened up and everybody was directed down there. And then to the left on the grassy area all the way down. And you had to walk all the way down to where they had the static displays.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
you, years ago on a fox hunt, and I can't recall the name of the road, so it might go back 40 years. There was a road that went between the golf course on East Mountain Road, and it went into the back of the airport.
Yep.
And I mean, the fox at that time was hidden way back at the end of the road. Everybody was kind of hesitant about driving down the middle of the golf course.
Yeah. Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, that road's still there. Yep.
Interesting. And is it still? It must be fenced off these days at the very end of it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a fence around the whole perimeter of the airport for the security stuff. Yeah.
Hmm.
Before I turned the monitor on here on the computer, it came on, and right up in a corner, they usually give the temperature for the area, Chicopee, 4 degrees.
Wow.
My weather station says 2.8 and it feels like minus 7.4 right now.
My computer just clicked 0.
Wow. I got 2.5.
What did I just do? Did I do that? That's my weather station. What did I do? Uh-oh.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Ken.
Ah,
Hey there, Ken.
Everybody staying nice and warm.
You're out in the tropics there today?
Almost.
Yep. Little warm attitude with a little hot chocolate.
Eat a coconut with an umbrella in it.
Yeah. That's what I need.
need a pair of shorts too.
Yep.
That's what I was thinking, Smitty. I figured you'd be there tonight with some shorts and everything on.
I'm only good to about minus 20 and they were forecasting minus 30 or 40. So I actually wore long pants today. Yep.
You know, back when I was working, I used to load the truck, you know, my truck in the freezer with shorts. You know, put
Oh,
a heavy
yeah.
coat on, but I always had shorts. You
Yeah.
know, just on a pallet jack running around the freezer.
Well, you
Yep.
could have worn your skirt or your kilt and long johns.
Yeah, I wore a kilt and yeah, that was a butt and my shirt, but yeah. I drove a 20 below zero reefer with a kilt on.
Yep.
That's too funny.
Yep.
Have to get up and do a jig for us someday.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, you can be the premier entertainment for the flea market coming up.
When I go to pick up my prize drawing, I'll wear my kilt.
He's already
He's-
expecting
he's-
it.
Yeah, he's already planning. Yeah.
Well, he didn't win anything at the Ham Expo when we were there,
I
right?
know. Or the party.
Everybody at the table won.
Yeah.
At the
Oh yeah, well,
holiday
I won a
party.
bag. That's right. That's
Yeah.
a 20-cent bag. That's the extent of my winnings. But
Yep.
it'd be nice to win something a little better than that. But
Yeah.
oh,
It's Mark.
hello, Mark.
Yeah, Mark.
Mark
Okay.
who? Oh, Mark.
WH
Okay, hi,
Lab.
Mark. So you're dialing in on your phone.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna change your name to Mark WB2 iOS, right?
WA2.
Or is it OIS? iOS?
WA2 iOS.
WA2. Oh, okay, I was close. I was close. Oh. So it's kind of funky having this cold weather, and not having any snow on the ground, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, all in all, this weather-wise, it really has been a pretty mild winter so far.
Yep.
And Sunday, it's supposed to be back up in the 40s.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 42 on Sunday. That's
Freaking crazy. Unreal.
Hey, you don't like it? Wait a minute.
yeah, that's exactly right.
Yep.
Exactly right. It I remember a story of I don't remember who it was, but a group of hams, they took a van up to the Burlington Flea Market in spring, I think it was, and they bedded down inside the van. They were selling stuff, and when they woke up, the whole inside of the van was iced in. The
Wow.
temperatures had dropped.
You hear the temperatures up on Mount Washington?
Oh, yeah. Wind chill minus
Ooh.
92.
Oh, is that-
92. They were up to 107, I think I heard last on World News.
Wow.
Crazy. I guess at that point, it don't matter.
Nope.
130-mile-an-hour winds right now.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Their website. Mount Washington record low, wind chills near. That was 2 hours ago. Let's see here. Mount Washington, 130-mile-an-hour winds, minus 40-degree temps. It looks like hell, really.
Yeah.
It doesn't look
Yep.
appealing at all. Somewhere that's live. I know you can bring it up live, or you
Yeah,
used to be able
they
to.
showed one on the news and it didn't look too pleasant.
Nope.
Over
Wind
at
chill
the
drops
other
to
house, it was 39.
minus 104 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
There you go, Smitty.
Yeah,
Go on top of Mount Wachusett with your shorts on and take a picture of it up there.
there you go. Yep.
Let's see, I'm waiting for that to come up.
Hey, John.
Evening.
Hello.
Oh, no water buffalo today.
They froze.
Yeah.
Well, you should put the picture up there with your frozen antenna.
Uh,
All right, everybody's popping in here now. That's just our.
Hey, Smitty.
Yeah.
Whose airplane is that?
That was at the air show at Barnes about 10 years ago. I think it's local Satabria. Yeah.
Hey, Tom, welcome to our meeting, our pre-meeting meeting.
The pre-meeting meeting?
Yes,
Yeah, I'm just getting set up here, so you
Yeah.
can hear me okay, I assume, so.
yes, yeah,
Otherwise you wouldn't be talking to me.
that's exactly right. Yeah, we still got 24 minutes before we start the meeting, so we're in good shape.
Okay. Yeah, I've brought up the PowerPoint and I think there's probably some audio stuff that I'll need to share and that kind of thing.
Yeah, let me
Then-
share. Okay, I just turned on
So-
sharing, so you should be good. Summit conditions at Mount Washington. Currently minus 46 Fahrenheit, 89 mile an hour winds. Gust to 106 miles an hour. Wind chill is a minus 106 degrees Fahrenheit as
Jesus
of right
Christ.
now.
Wow.
Sounds like Minnesota.
Ooh.
Just wanted to comment on that. I was watching 22 weather and they mentioned it was like in Siberia, there's a town out there and it was like 186 degrees below zero. And they
Wow.
thought, can you get any colder than that? And
Wow.
that was about 2 weeks ago.
Well, is that the actual temperature or the actual wind chill?
No, that was the actual temperature.
Really?
Wow.
Well, I know Mount Washington has the coldest recorded temperature or wind chill at minus 236 or something like that. I'm just looking here. And look, and they have snow up there. Here, I'll put this up here if anybody wants to bring it up. I just posted the link if somebody wants to bring up in the chat, at least somebody wants to bring it up. What I have up. I don't know. So how are things in Southwick there, Jurgen?
We have, I think right now, I think it's 4. What are we at 4? I think 4 degrees or 5.
Oh, bust out the sunblock.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, where are you located? You're out in the Midwest somewhere from your call, or are you somewhere else? You're muted.
Yeah, there we go. No, I'm southeastern Minnesota, in the
Southeastern
bluff
Minnesota.
country. So,
So-
yeah.
You must have some interesting weather out there.
Yeah, well, it was, I think it was like 9 below zero when we got up this morning, actual and windy. But tomorrow it's supposed to be right at freezing. So just like they say, stand around for a while and it'll change. So
Got a
Yeah,
heat wave.
heat
Yeah,
wave.
we're in the middle
Well,
of
you know,
that Arctic
Minnesotans-
blast here in Western Mass
I
area.
saw that on the news. You can have it. But the Minnesotans, I mean, tomorrow, if it's freezing tomorrow, it'll be shorts and t-shirts, you know, after that cold a temperature, it just feels warm.
We went to a an engagement in the Atlanta area, actually Marietta, Alpharetta years ago. I think my son was, I don't know, I think he was still in a stroller, so it must be like 22, 23 years ago. And when we left here, or maybe it wasn't that long ago, maybe it was older. Maybe it was 14, 15 years ago. When we left here, it was -9. And I remember at the airport saying, oh, it's going to be so cold in Atlanta. It's only 28 degrees or 30 degrees. You're going to freeze and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you kidding me? It's like a heat wave. It's 40 degrees warmer than here. Why would we freeze? So when we got there, it was 30 degrees, and we were fine. It was warm. We had the coats unbuttoned compared to here, and gradually it got up. By the time we were there for the third day, it got up to I think 55, and we had brought shorts and t-shirts with us, and so we put on fleece jackets and we went to the Atlanta aquarium, and we're in line, and we're dressed lightly with light jackets, and we had shorts on. And everybody around us is wearing, down vests and down jackets. And everybody kept asking us, are you guys from Alaska? Are you from Alaska? And it was just so funny. It's like, no, we're just from Massachusetts, but it's, 65 degrees colder up there now than it is here. It was really wild.
That's
Hey,
like
Mark.
that's like when I went to Arizona in November, down there was nothing, that shirt and shorts down there. I see people walking around in jackets and stuff. What the heck's the matter with you guys?
How are things in Florida, Mark?
Well, we're suffering because it's only about 64.
Hey, things are tough all
And
over.
it's-
All right, shut him down.
Mute. Enjoy it, Mark. You don't want to be up here.
Yeah, I heard it's been pretty miserable up there.
It's 2.8 right now here with a wind chill bringing it down to -8.3. So
I just talked to my son who lives in Montreal, and he said it was 15 below zero there.
oh.
Wow.
So
No
my
matter
son
how
was
bad it
skiing.
is,
Go
no
ahead.
matter how. Go ahead, John.
That's it. My son texted me, he was skiing up in New Hampshire. And it was
Oh.
like was 0 or below. I said, not too many people on the slope.
Hey, if the wind is right, all he has to do is put out a sheet and he can go back up the hill.
Yeah.
Oh, it's got to be brutal going down because you've got to cover every single body part and make sure you
He
got
was.
goggles on. Yeah,
There wasn't
it's-
any exposed skin on him. But he did say frozen eyeball.
Oh well, we're getting there. So is anybody going to partake in the 10-10 contest this weekend? It actually starts, I guess, 13 minutes ago. It always seems the band seems to change whenever there's a 10-meter contest coming up. We haven't had really good propagation for the for a 10-meter contest yet with all the good propagation we've had. But hopefully I'll work some of you guys. I've got a 10-10 number from 40 years ago. So, and if you don't know what 10-10 is, just get on 10 meters, work 10 people, and with 10 numbers, and you can submit it and get your own number. And I think they're up to somewhere around 74,000 right now, and I'm in the 31,000 range.
Is that a one-time $10 charge you have to pay every year?
No, once you get your number, the number is good, and you don't have to rejoin. Your number is good forever. It's attached to you. So you change your call, whatever, it's still the same.
Okay, thanks.
Larry, I'm gonna go, excuse me, walk the dog. I talked to our guest speaker. He's coming around.
He's already here. He's right.
Great. Hey, John.
You got
He's ahead of me. I gotta change computers. You can see that I'm back in the 50s with the horizontal and the vertical here. Oh, great. So So I will walk our wonderful Saint Bernard before our meeting, and I'll be back in about 5 minutes.
He's got to turn those rabbit ears.
That's right.
Something.
Well, no, I think I need to put some aluminum foil on my head, and that ought to take care of it. So, all right, I'm going to go and rejoin. When I rejoin, it will be with a different PC.
Okay, all right.
Bye-bye.
Well, have fun.
I don't miss having a dog, that's for sure. Nights
Oh.
like this.
Oh yeah, well, nights like this it's brutal. We don't have a dog, but we had a dog for 18 years, and part of that was a full fenced-in yard. Part of it was a run. But when it's cold like this, you can't get him to go outside. And then half the fun is putting the fleece jacket on him, putting the booties on him, and he goes outside for about 15 seconds and then comes running back in. And then the big game is to get the booties off of him and the jacket off. It was good times, though. Really good times.
How's your son doing up there in this weather?
He loves the cold. He loves the mountains. His dog is a Virginia dog, and his dog seems to like the cold weather too, and the snow. He's got about 10 inches of snow on the ground, and but he prefers it to Virginia. Virginia and he did not agree because Virginia was very racial, very Trump, very Confederate, and he did not like that at all. Growing up in Massachusetts, where it's very liberal, but he did not like Virginia, at least Eastern Virginia. He was an hour and a half east of Richmond, so maybe in Richmond or somewhere else it would have been a little better. But he's loving Maine. He loves everything about it: the good weather, the bad weather, the coast, the mountains. Being able to drive an hour or two, and he's been climbing the presidential range in nicer weather, and doing this thing. How's Vanessa doing tonight? Oh, she's quiet. And I saw Alex. Oh, Alex, how are you tonight?
Sorry, I'm fine, Vanessa. I was putting on a jacket.
It's not a night you want to keep your heat down at 62. It's anyway, you want to keep it up around 70 and be comfortable.
Yeah, we try to keep ours at 68 normally, but not now.
Yeah, I think we're hovering around 70, 71 tonight.
I saw something on YouTube. I think it was YouTube. This house it's built up in Maine. He has no heat, no furnace. He has excuse me. Yeah, what am I trying to say? She doesn't have a furnace or wood stove or anything like that. 15 inches of insulation in the walls.
Even so, it's got to get cold. I mean, it's got to 15 inches.
He uses a heat pump.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
It's only 1,500 square feet, but still.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine 15 inches. What do they do in the windows? I mean,
that's your biggest heat loss usually, no matter how good they are.
Where in Maine was he? I mean, I guess it really doesn't matter.
Didn't say. Just out of curiosity, I'd like to find out more about it, just for interest.
It's, I mean, you leave anything sitting there for a while and it's going to get cold, really cold. We have a heat pump water heater, and it is very efficient. Although in this cold weather, we stick it on electric mode for 2 months. But otherwise, running the heat pump in the warmer weather, it acts like an air conditioner in our basement, which is where the water heater is. Although in the wintertime, 46 degrees in the basement is not comfortable. But it saves us over the electric, it saves us $60 to $80 a month in electricity. It's very efficient and it works very well, but it's just too cold down there in the winter time. We can't run it. You know.
Well, I have the same thing, Larry. I have a hybrid mode, so it
Yeah.
does have elements on it. And when it can't satisfy, the elements come on.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, mine is a Ream, and it does heat pump, energy saver, electric, and one or two other modes too. We've experimented with them all, and the heat pump is the most efficient.
I let the state of Massachusetts pay for mine.
Oh. Is that something age related or?
Well, they had this one program about energy savings, and I had to pay for the plumber though.
Yeah. Well, so it costs you $500 or $600 possibly to install it.
Yeah. Can't do anything by yourself.
No, not especially if you don't like water on the floor.
Yeah.
No one's ever had that problem when they do their own plumbing.
Oh, I do some, I'm in a program where I do beta testing for all sorts of things. And so was it 2 years ago or maybe 2.5 years ago? I ended up getting signed up for a Ream water heater, and that's when they came in and they paid to have this thing installed. And it lasted about a year. And then a year ago, last December, just a couple days before Christmas time, it started leaking and we had a problem with it. And it's got a 10-year or 12-year warranty, and went through heck to try to get it replaced. We paid for the service to take it out, put it back in. So far it's working, but if this thing goes again under warranty, we're just going to go out and buy another one because it's too much of a hassle. It's so expensive to take it out and put the new one back in, especially since the one we had before was 8 years old. We never had a problem with, and this is a $2,100 water heater. It's not a cheap thing.
Oh, the cheapest one we bought for our tenants, remember I said I just replaced the same thing in December, and that was almost $500, and that was at Home Depot, the bargain basement 40-gallon hot water heater electric.
Yeah, we had I think it was a GE or somebody before that, and it worked great. So Mark, are you doing any ham radio down in Florida, or are you just down sitting by the beach watching the babes every day?
No, actually, I came down here and I managed to get sick. I got a pretty bad cold, and I'm just kind of getting over it now. But this last weekend, I'm also a member of this Upper Pinellas Amateur Radio Club, and so I operated Winter Field Day. They did it at a fire station like training facility. So we were running 3-0, and it was a lot of fun. They had a good place. They had not a tower, but like a 3-story building that they must use somehow for practice for firemen. And so we put a hex beam, and all the dipoles the high end were connected up there. So it worked out pretty well.
Nice. Maybe that's where they do the practice fire, putting out the fire stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a high-rise practice. Usually they train on getting hoses up there and outside ladder training and stuff like that.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, we did a little joint thing with Franklin County and on Sunday, and it was cold out there. Not as cold as it is today, but with the wind, it was pretty cold. But everybody had a good time, and I don't know if we made any. There may have been maybe 20 or 30 contacts made, but it was a good time to talk to everybody and see what everybody's using for portable antennas and portable rigs and everything else. And a good time was had by all. Very good time. Hey, Joe, welcome to our meeting. We'll be starting up in about 6 minutes, and you're down in Florida too, right?
Yes, I am.
And where in Florida are you?
I'm in West Palm Beach.
And
Oh,
our winter field day, this was my first winter field day when it wasn't 10 degrees out. So it was 74, nice breeze. It was totally different but their summer field day is uncomfortable down here like our winter field day is up there. So but a good time was had.
well, that's
Sure.
good. Well, if
How
it
you
was
doing, Joe?
95 degrees up here during our summer field day, I can't imagine what it would be like in Florida.
Hot.
All righty. Well, we got 5 more minutes. We'll see who else. We're up to 20 people. Hey, Gary, so did your dog want to come in from the cold or did it want to stay out there?
Well, you know, when you have a Saint Bernard, she's impervious to the weather, and I just had to drag her in, or else I would be out there freezing. So that's, but you know, when nature calls.
Well,
This
if you lose your heat, you can put her on the bed between you and Jay, and she'll keep both of you quite warm, I would assume.
Well, at one point, Larry, we had both a Newfoundland and a Saint Bernard, and
Oh my God.
we were kids, and we had a water bed, so that was not a good combination, I'll tell you.
You gotta wear your life vest to work to sleep in.
So that dates us. When's the last time anybody slept down a water bed? The old kind.
Quite a few years ago.
But the dogs would run and jump on it, and occasionally at about 3:30 in the morning, we'd get a leak, and you'd have to try to find out where it was. In fact, at that time, we would have 3 dogs on the bed. We also had a Doberman, so they all would get on the bed, and Jay and I, and maybe that's why we never had 9 kids. Because we were always sharing our bed with pets, but anyway.
Well, I can see you, sleeping and waking up because you're having this dream that you're swimming, and and you really were.
Well, anyway, I'm glad to see we have a reasonable turnout tonight, and so happy that Tom was able to join us. He has a story to tell. I can share that with you so far right now.
Well, I just let somebody else in. We're up to 22. In 3 minutes, I'm going to start the meeting up. In the meantime, I'm going to ask everybody, which is what I ask at the in-person meetings and on here too, is to either turn down the volume on your phones or turn off the ringers, just so that it doesn't interrupt the guest speaker when he's speaking. We will be muting everybody or asking everybody to mute and during the meeting, and afterwards we'll have questions, although it's up to Tom whether he wants questions in the middle of his presentation or at the end. Probably at the end is preferred, but that's up to him. And we got a good group here, and for those of you that know Smitty, he's actually wearing long pants today, I think for the first time that we've ever known him, versus shorts all year round and all. But is there anything you want to announce for the section, Ray?
Not really. It's been pretty quiet. They're still promoting VODA, and they anticipate, they said that it's starting pretty briskly at the get-go. So I think they're anticipating this to be a pretty successful event. So, but still promoting it and still getting the word out. So hopefully it'll gain more momentum.
Cool. That's good. It's for those of you that don't know, I'm the state manager for Volunteers on the Air for Massachusetts. So if you're looking to be an activator, you can contact me. The dates are April 12th to the 18th for the first session, and that's what we're concentrating on getting operators for right now. And I think the second session's in November.
November 18th.
Yeah, somewhere in there. I'm concentrating mainly on the first session right now. But to be an activator, all you need is HF gear, and we'll sign you up, and I run it just like we do with the 13 colonies, where we have a online shared schedule, and when you want to operate, you look at the day the time, the band, and the mode. And if nobody has put in there, you pop your call in there and you're scheduled for that time slot. And it's just like 13 colonies. I'm sure it's going to be a rush with everybody calling you and you being in demand during that 7-day period of time. But we're going to get things rolling here. It is officially 7:30, so welcome everybody to the Hampden County Radio Association meeting. Hopefully everybody got word that we canceled the in-person meeting and we're only doing the Zoom meeting. And judging by the fact we got 23 people here tonight, that's a good thing. We do have a sign up at the hospital. Hopefully nobody will show up and all. But it was just with the crazy weather, we felt that it's in everybody's interest, health and safety, to not go out tonight. And so here we are. We have the HCRA is doing a big raffle. We're raffling off a Geocron Atlas 4K plus a $300 Best Buy gift card. And it's $10 will buy you one ticket. It's an $800 value. We have 250 tickets to sell. And so you have a 1 in 250 chance at the most. And in the past, it's been like 1 in 150, 1 in 160. And we're going to be doing the drawing at 12 noon at the Mount Tom Flea, which is, I think, Saturday, March 4th, I believe.
Got it.
So, and we're going to be selling tickets at the flea market. We're selling tickets before that. You can, if you want to buy a ticket and have one or some mailed to you, just put an extra $1 or $2 in, because PayPal whacks us for the, for anything we charge online. We go through online for, purchasing online. So we ask that you put in an extra $1 for postage and an envelope, and an extra $1 or $2 for PayPal also, or in person, it's just $10 a ticket. So it's, if you haven't seen the Geocron, you should go to geocron.com. If you've been to W1AW in the last couple of months, they have a 45-inch hanging in W1AW, and it looks beautiful. It would look fantastic hanging up on my wall, and it would look great in anybody's shack. So that's our big raffle. We make some money from it, and that money is used for a variety of different things to keep the club running. If you're thinking about joining the ARL, or if you're thinking about renewing the ARL, they changed the rewards for clubs that sign up. So if you can go through the club, we will get a little kickback from the league, and every little bit counts. We also have, although it ends February 20th, we also have an Amazon Smile account, Hampden County Radio Association, although Amazon has stated they are ending the Smile donations on February 20th. So if you're going to do any purchasing between now and February 20th, set us up as your Smile donor, and we'll get a little bit back from that. And we appreciate everything comes our way. Monday nights at 28,375 at 7 p.m. we have a 10-meter net. You don't have to be a member. It's 28,375 single sideband. We've been getting 10 to 12 people a night. Every night there's a subject and conversation, and it's always very interesting. It's always a lot of fun. And as 10-meter opens up more and more, we've been getting stations from further and further away. You don't need a high-end station. You can be running anything as long as net control can hear you. And he's in a good location. He's located on Mount Tom in Holyoke, and his signal usually comes booming in everywhere. So that's Monday nights at 7 p.m. Join us. And as I mentioned prior, the 1010 contest is this weekend. You can, if you don't have a 1010 number, you can work 10 people with the 1010 numbers, and then you can submit for your own 1010 number. And it's just a way of keeping 10 meters active. We started up January 1st, worked all HCRA awards. So if you work 10 HCRA members and submit your log, you will earn a certificate. So they have to be members, and you can verify that by going on to hcra.org and go to the members section. And if you have everybody that's listed there, you can submit your log and we'll get you out a certificate. It's part of our 75th anniversary for the HCRA. We have October, we turned 75 years old and 75 years of affiliation. And December 4th of 2023, this year, we have a big banquet in honor of the 75th anniversary, and we're building towards lots of exciting things going on for that. And all there's going to be all sorts of special things going on during the year in honor of the 75th. So stay tuned for that. Watch what's going on with the club. And as Ray mentioned earlier, the volunteers on the air, that's going on. And does anybody have any announcements or any comments about anything?
Yeah, I got one, Larry.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I'd just like to remind everybody that the March Zero Beat deadline will be the 15th as usual. And I'm particularly looking for, and board members pay attention, please. I'm looking for more share your shack images and brief description. All it takes is a couple of pics of your shack. Doesn't have to be nothing fancy. Whatever is yours, show it off. And with a brief description, and we'll get it in Zero Beat.
Excellent. Good, good. And it's always fun to watch somebody else's shack. Vanessa, you have a question or a comment? You have your hand raised. Okay, we'll get back to her. We have each time in conjunction with the monthly meetings, we have share the knowledge sessions. We had 3 in January and they went very well. The next 2 coming up are February 21st and February 28th. And our own Bob K1YO is going to be doing inexpensive tools for the ham operator, and it's going to be part 1 and part 2. And that's Tuesday, February 21st and the 28th, 7 p.m. The mini sessions, they're like mini meetings. They go 30 to 60 minutes with Q&A, and they're always informative and always interesting. So far, we've had reverse beacons and some other stuff too, which I can't think of at the moment. We've also got in March, we have Modern RIDI by Jurgen and V1Q. March 28th is the YLRL, which is the Young Lady Radio League with Barbara KC1KGS and Ann WB1ARU. And April 11th, we have Ray that's going to talk about the ARL and you. And anything else that might pop up, we might fit in between. But we're off and running, and these are to keep everybody busy and interested during the cold months. And they end in April, just as things start getting warm.
Larry, can I make a comment on the one shared knowledge I have, or 2 of them?
Yep, go right ahead, Bob.
First one, like you said, is just based on people just coming into amateur radio. What kind of tools should they use or could they use for a workbench, and what will they need? The second one, a week later, I'm going to go into some depth on the nano VNA and the tiny spectrum analyzer, and possibly one of the small dual channel oscilloscopes, but definitely those first 2. So the first one for newbies, second one for those of you that may be interested in those other 2 things. Okay, thanks.
Cool. Thanks very much, Bob. And let's see, I don't, Al, is there anything going on with him with Franklin County? I thought I saw Al here somewhere.
Yeah, do you can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, things are going on. I wasn't able to go, but I thought it was a great thing that we had a joint thing with you guys for Winter Field Day up at the Notch. I unfortunately only was able to get on the air for a few hours near the end from home. And I don't know, if anybody wants to get the newsletter, the FCARC newsletter, just get me a call. We'll send it to anybody who's willing to take it out of the email.
Okay. Are there any upcoming special service, public service events that you need help for?
I'm not a member of the e-board at this time. I don't think we have anything particularly the near future. We are starting to do, thinking a lot about field day. We don't want to do it like last year where nobody thought about it until too near the end. We did do it, but it was, I'm the one who took the brunt of that, and I'm not going to do that alone again.
Okay, all right, well, thank you anyways, and we always ask at all the meetings. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'd like to introduce Gary, AA1UE, who will introduce us to our guest speaker. All yours, Gary. You got to unmute yourself.
There we go. Wasn't
Okay.
sure if you were unmuting everybody. So we're really, we really have a special meeting tonight. It's really my pleasure to introduce Tom Vinson, NY0V. Tom is a 33-year veteran of Rockwell Collins. He's worked in almost every aspect of communication you could think about. And basically, somewhere along the way, as a member of the Rockwell Collins Radio Club, he became interested more than a quarter century ago in the search for Amelia Earhart. And he'll share with us, you know, his experiences along the way, Rockwell Collins' involvement, and as a team leader, some of the discoveries he made, or in terms of where we think Amelia has finally had her resting place, and any kinds of enlightenment he can share on that. So without any further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Tom NY0V for the rest of the program.
Take it away, Tom.
Great. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that was enough. All right. So let's see, do I bring up the PowerPoint and then hit share, or hit share and then bring up PowerPoint?
Try either way. We do this so infrequently, I never remember. So
see, share screen first. Okay. Yeah, here we go. I think I'll bring that, hit share. How's that?
Looks good.
And then also, I think there's an audio that I have to share, share sound. And I think that will do it. So
yeah, you want to click on each one to bring each one up, or I think it's F5 will start it up. There you go.
Yeah, that should be okay. Yeah, haven't done these since before Christmas, and so you get a little fuzzy, you know, as you go along here and running the stupid Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So is everybody else going to be on mute?
Yes, everybody else is going to be muted. I'm going to mute myself in just a moment.
Yeah, so when we get to a video there, I want one point of contact, like if you're hearing it, then just give me a thumbs up.
Okay.
If you're not, let me know, and I'll probably have to unplug my headset. So we'll see how that goes. Okay. All right. Actually, I have 3 presentations, and Gary said, well, we'd like to hear about, you know, the expeditions and that type of thing. And I do have that for the general public. And I thought, well, this is a radio club. So I want to put in some radio stuff, you know, so I've been working. Every one of these is a little different from each one that I've given. But there's usually the first presentation I give is called an HF systems engineering approach to solving the Earhart mystery. And so that's one presentation, and that gets into the DBs. That's on what we did. And then there's another one called a high fidelity HF test simulation, where we actually refurbed all the 1937 equipment, 36, 37 equipment, avionics that was on her Lockheed L-10. And we flew it on a Beech 18 out over the Delmarva Peninsula, out over the ocean, out of Virginia, and then had a receive site on a ship down in the Atlantic. So that's another presentation. So I know you got a lot of good programs, but I do have 2 others that would be related to this topic. So let's get on with it here then. Okay, just so run through a little background for Earhart, how we, a very high level of solving the mystery, how we went about it. Then some of the expeditions, the technology that's used when we do deep water sonar. and a Q&A session. Okay, most of you have heard of Amelia Earhart, I assume. And 1897 is when she was born in Atchison, Kansas. And she lived in Des Moines, Iowa, and here in the Midwest. And when I do this for STEM education to the kids in school, I say 1897, and that's like their great grandma or something. And my grandma was born in 1897, so it's not that far off. In fact, I gave a presentation to the Waterloo Technical Society, and a lady came up and said, I actually heard Amelia Earhart speak at the University of Iowa. That was like 20 years ago. And so she was quite old. And I said, well, great, what'd she say? And she says, well, I don't remember quite what she said, but I remember exactly what she was wearing. So, so there you go. So she was not much help. So 1897, we're talking about a period here then till 1937 when she disappeared in her last flight. So she was almost 40 years old. Most people know about her avionics, and I'll talk mostly about that, but her aviation experience. But also she was quite a risk taker, you know, and at that time, being a female, being a risk taker, getting into aviation when it was male dominated, you know, especially through World War I in the military. And so she was investing in some of the fledgling airlines back then. And she had her own luggage line, her own fashion line, and her husband, George Putnam, was a publicist, and he was always keeping her name out in the public. But so a little bit of history here. She saw her first airplane in 1908. So you can see there, she was only about 10 or 11 years old. And then she takes her first flight then in 1920, and she was hooked. She knew she wanted to be in aviation. 22, she set a world's women's record, altitude record at 14,000 feet. Now they weren't using oxygen back then. So, you know, she was risking having hypoxia at that kind of altitude. And you can see that 31 down there of the auto gyro, she took up to 18,000 feet. And that's really almost reckless, right? For you aviators. I saw someone with like a Super Cub there. Yeah, you know, I know you have some aviators there in your club. So, but really what got her into the forefront of public domain was the 1928. She was the first woman to cross the Atlantic as a passenger. And they were in a Ford Trimotor, amphibious trimotor, and flew across. The men were flying it. She was a passenger, and she got all the glory because that was unheard of a woman passenger doing that. So she set all sorts of records. And really what we're looking for here in 1937 is they wanted to do one really good last record, and she wanted to circumnavigate the globe as close to the equator as possible. And they got their aircraft, this Lockheed L-10E from Purdue University, funded that. It was $50,000. The one that the Atchison, the Amelia Earhart Birthplace Museum has in Atchison, Kansas, cost them $1 million. So that's quite a leap from 50K. So anyway, on June 1st, she leaves Miami going west to east for a 22,000-mile flight, circumnavigating the globe. And on July 2nd, she leaves New Guinea for Howland Island out KH-1. Are you DXers there? I assume we have a few DXers in the crowd. And that's King Hotel 1 that she was headed for. And she was never heard from again, which makes for great mysteries and legacy, and also all sorts of hearsay and theories and what have you. But there's three main theories on what happened to Earhart, three. And one of them is that she was a spy for the US Navy. She was flying over the Marshall Islands, which the Japanese had taken over at that time. And she was shot down, and her and Fred Noonan, her navigator, were taken to Saipan and executed. The second one is that she couldn't find the island. She was lost, so she flew down towards where there's lots of islands and landed on Gardner Island at the time, which is now called Nikamaruru. And there's a group called Tigar that supports that hypothesis. And they portray that, oh, they found all these artifacts down there, so they must be Amelia Earhart's. And then the third one is that she ran out of gas looking for the island and simply landed in the ocean and sank. Crash and sank theory. So those are the three main ones. There's others that she lived in New Jersey, under an assumed name, all these other ones, but those are the three main ones. Okay, so here's a picture of Amelia Earhart picking up the Lockheed L-10 at Lockheed. We know that it's when she picked it up because there's no DF loop on top, there's no HF antenna stanchions there, and so it has not been outfitted as a flying laboratory. That's what they were calling it, a flying laboratory. And this is the only picture that we know of that was not in the public domain because we found it in the Collins archives. And I don't know what Art Collins was doing with it, but he had this picture and we had never seen it in the public domain before. The gentleman to her right is Paul Mance. Paul Mance was her technical advisor, flew out to Hawaii with her, showing her how to run the fuel mixtures on the aircraft for most efficiency. And he was a stunt pilot in Hollywood, and he was killed in making the movie Flight of the Phoenix. And you can see that crash that killed him on YouTube. Okay, this is the aircraft. This happens to be in Darwin, but the guy refueling it there, it's a 55-foot wingspan on this Lockheed L-10E. And right behind the man standing there refueling is a little loop, a DF loop antenna that's made by Bendix. And you see a white dot under that window there. That's a Fred Noonan navigation window. That's the insulator for the HF antenna. And it goes up 6 feet and hooks up to a wire. That's a V. So each end of the V is tied to the vertical stabs. And then that stanchion that you see, that spike sticking up behind the cockpit, is where it ties into the V. You can't see it very well, I know, but so that's a 6-foot piece of wire onto this V wire. And that was her HF antenna. The receive antenna was down below under the fuselage. Here she is running the radios. And so I have this plan B. Because plan A was for her to fly from Oakland, California out to Honolulu, then Honolulu to Howland. And what happened is she got to Honolulu, and on the day she was taking off to go to Howland, east to west, she ground looped the aircraft. The right strut collapsed and she ground looped it. Miracle that the plane did not just totally explode on takeoff. So they had to go back to Oakland. Lockheed had to refurb it. And then in June, she took off, but this time she went west. Now that sounds a little innocuous, but all her logistics for the around the world flight had been set up to go east to west, including communications. So right there, that was problematic. Also was problematic for the reason that flying from Honolulu to Howland Island is 1,600 miles. And they also had a third passenger named Harry Manning, who was a ham. He's a radio operator. He knew how to run the radios. And Fred Noonan, the navigator, 1,600 miles. And then by going west to east, she went from Lae, New Guinea to Howland. That's 2,500 miles. And no longer could Harry Manning stay because he had to work. And so they only had Harry Manning and Earhart to fly that west to east path. So that's what she was trying to do. Here's Lae, New Guinea down here. You can see Papa 29 down in Lae, and the flight trajectory out to Howland Island, just north of the equator. It's 48 minutes north of the equator. There was USS Ontario stationed about midway. There was a ship up from New Zealand called the Myrtle Bank, which the next day showed up at Nauru. That becomes important because there is a point where she said, I see lights from a ship ahead, which we think must have been Myrtle Bank, not the Ontario. And then Itasca is a U.S. Coast Guard cutter stationed off of Howland Island. and near just off the northwest coast. 2,556 miles of mostly over open water to an island, which is not bigger than almost like a tombstone out there. So she took off from Ley, New Guinea at 0 hours Greenwich, which meant her flight time, her elapsed time was GMT. So that worked out. You know, Fred Noonan had to do something with that. Loaded, fully loaded, barely made takeoff out of Ley, New Guinea. They knew it was going to be a stretch. They were throwing everything off that aircraft that they didn't need. Parachutes, because, you know, they're mostly over open water. Her CW key was one of them. Her long wave trailing wire antenna, medium wave antenna, which could have saved their lives had they not done that, but it was more weight. And all through the night, transmissions are heard by Nauru residents and by the Itasca on 3105 kilohertz. So she's about on 80 meters. And 20 hours and 13 minutes until her last transmission. And she was never heard from again. And folks, we've been on 3 expeditions so far. So people are still looking for her. And Nukumaro guys, the Tigar group, they've been out to Nukumaro 7 times now. This is Howland Island from the air. We had a videographer and a drone. And so we took it up 1,000 feet and aimed it at Howland Island to see what that would look like. Because she said on her approach, she said she was at 1,000 feet. So how far can you see that island from 1,000 feet, especially when you have a sun glare coming at you from the morning off that ocean? And the island itself is about 1.5 to 1 3/4 mile long. Okay, so Holyoke, I don't know how big that little town is of yours, but figure out about 1 3/4 mile by 1/2 mile to 3/4 mile wide. And that's the swath of that island that she had to find. So solving the mystery, again, I have a whole presentation on the details of this, but when we were contacted by nauticos.com, they said, could you look at the Amelia Earhart HF transmissions? And could you just tell us, was she going closer to the island, going away from the island? What can you tell us about her flight? As they were looking into the possibility of searching for her aircraft. Now, that was 1999, we started doing that. They thought it'd take about 3 hours. We are now over 4,000 hours of engineering work. You know, and that's not just any engineers. These guys are, 2 of our team are hams, but they are Rockwell Engineers of the Year in their fields there. So pilots and system engineers, HF experts, propagation experts, we pulled them all together. And the common thread through all this is that all of our team were all hams and part of the Collins Amateur Radio Club, bringing this together. Yeah, because my boss, the VPGM, says you can use any of the company's assets, but you can't work on company time on this. And that sound like a boss, huh? So we said, yeah, let's do it. So we were working to try to predict the distance between the Itasca and the Electra for each of her HF transmissions on 3105 and do a navigation analysis to try to get bearing. So range and bearing for each of her transmissions. And we got into all sorts of other stuff, Monte Carlo simulations, statistical mapping, decision tree mapping, all those. But the whole bottom line is we had to narrow the search area because it's so expensive to search. You want to make it economically feasible. You know, so you want a high probability of finding the aircraft when you come up with a search area. And here's what we started with were the Itasca logs. Those radio operators on the Itasca were trained CW ops and voice, and they were running AM voice and they were running CW. And when we started looking at this, we said, well, heck, we can read this. Why is that? Well, they were saying QSO and QSA signal strength 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Back then it wasn't S9 like we have today. And so we started looking at it and say, well, you can read exactly what she was saying and what's going on. They typed this all up on a circular mill. So they had signal strengths in here and what she was saying. And you can actually read all that, by the way. There's 2 books. First of all, Mary Lovell's, Amelia Earhart, The Sound of Wings, Mary Lovell. This is a really good biography for Amelia Earhart. And in the back, it has all the HF transmissions. These logs are all on the back of it. She does a pretty good job of it. And then the other one that got us going is Elgin Long's book, Amelia Earhart, Mystery Solved. He was actually lied about his age in World War II as a radio op on a PWY, and was a Flying Tiger pilot for 40 years. So he wrote the book, and this is more of an aviation navigation type, more technical book. But Elgin and Marie Long wrote that. So those are 2 books that I would recommend. So let me just put you, a lot of people don't know what she said for her last words. I'm going to run this through very quickly because we're going to go into the expeditions themselves. But here's Howland Island, 48 degrees north, and you can see the international date line and Howland Island, and the equator is right here below the red dot. So Howland Island, there's charted Howland Island. And so charted Howland Island was actually 5 miles west of where real Howland Island is. So Fred Noonan was aiming for an island that didn't exist, basically, 5 miles away from where it was charted. So the charts weren't that good. And so that was part of his problem. There's Baker Island. That's also KH1 Bravo. It's about 40 some miles separating them. And the area of visibility, we put a line around there. We've verified through several sources that on that morning, and usually in those conditions, that you really wouldn't know if you're seeing the island unless you're at least around 7 miles away. 7 miles. Now they're already 5 miles off, right? So it could be 7 to 12 miles visibility, depending on which angle of attack you're coming in versus the sun line. Okay, there's the sun line of position. Won't get into that because that's a navigation term, but that's a sun shot that Fred Noonan would take early on when the sun came up, and it would give him it's perpendicular to the azimuth of the sun, and he would run that through his position and then advance that line through the island and then measure the distance between the 2 lines. So it's 2 parallel lines. So if it's 120 miles and you're doing 120 miles an hour, you'd fly for an hour and you should be right on that line. Okay, so after 18 hours of flying, here's some of the last transmissions. I
only joined the microphone about 100 miles out. About 200 miles out, approximately.
I hit it twice.
Now.
Okay, I hit it twice. So I hit 2 buttons. So you can see there, she wants a bearing to the ship, wants a whistle on the mic. She thinks she's about 100 miles out, 6:45 Itasca time in the morning.
KJ2Q, calling Itasca. We must be on you, but cannot see you. But gas is running low. Have been unable to reach you by radio. We are flying at altitude 1,000 feet.
So you can see she's louder. Signal and noise is better. They say their signal strength is up. Her last 3 transmissions were S5, as strong as they can be. But you can see that she has a problem. We must be on you, but cannot see you. Into the navigation solution, but out of visual range. Gas is running low. One of the logs says 30 minutes of fuel left, done by one of the AP reporters there. And we're unable to reach you by radio. Itasca was hearing her fine. She was not hearing the Itasca. And then we are flying at altitude 1,000 feet. Why not 5,000 if you're looking for an island? There's different things going on here. So that's 7:42 in the morning.
We are circling but cannot hear you. Go ahead on 7,500. Either now or on the scheduled time on half hour.
Okay, this is interesting because 7,500 was nowhere supposed to be up there on 7,500. Her daytime frequency was 6210, but she tells them to go on 7,500. Well, why is that? Well, that's because at 8 o'clock.
KHAQQ calling Itasca. We received your signals, but unable to get a minimum. Please take bearing on us and answer 3105 with voice.
So I should preface this. This is Lisa Carrara, a software engineer. There are no tapes of her voice on these, okay? We just simulated them to give you the idea of what's going on there, all right? So now see, this is the first time she acknowledges she hears Itasca and been unable to get a minimum. Well, what's going on? Well, she's on the DF antenna, right? So she's probably has that locked in position and just circling and trying to look for a null off the front of the aircraft in the signal strength. But it's all done orally. There are no needles to show a minimum in that aircraft. So she's trying to listen to that, and she's been flying for almost 20 hours in that egg beater. So now see, she wants them to now take a bearing on her and answer on 3105 with voice. So the big question is, why did she say 7,500? And that is another presentation, because we believe now, after doing the Delmarva tests, we know why she was not able to get a minimum. And then
we are on the line of position 157337. We'll repeat this message on 6210. Wait, listening on 6210. We are running north and south.
Okay, so she's on the line. She says she obviously, they think they're on the line of position. They didn't find the island, and she's saying that we're running north and south. And in the logs it says NESS. CW shorthand, right? North and south. And at this point, basically, it looks like they're doing some kind of ladder search, and then you can tell at 0742 they were low on fuel. It's 1 hour later and they're done. And so that's why those are her last transmissions. She was so loud that Chief Bellerts, the chief radio operator on Itasca, said he got up, looked out the hatch, expecting to see her fly through the rigging. That's how loud she was. And not to get too detailed here, this is in the other presentation, but so our goal was here to look at, first of all, the noise floor. Here you have the absolute noise floor, and to find out, can we estimate or simulate or experimentally do man-made noise and natural noise. And if you add those together, then you're at the Itasca receiver noise. And then, of course, you have the signal and noise ratio. You have a signal of S5 signal strength over here. That's on the receive end. On the transmit end, you have her with a 50-watt AM voice transmitter, 50 watts, 3105 kilohertz. You've got that V antenna, so you have antenna gain or loss. And let me tell you, it's not a very good antenna on 80 meters. And so that you have a radiated field strength that you can come up with. And so with C-wave propagation loss, you can, there's software models, and we actually did over ocean models at down in Florida off Melbourne. And you can actually measure the signal strength decrease with distance or increase with distance, depending on which way you're going to the transmitter site. And that's pretty calculable. So if you do that, then for every signal strength, we said we should be able to calculate a range for each signal strength. And these aren't range rings, these are range donuts. You know, it's a binomial distribution. They kind of, some places they overlap. But that's what we were doing, and that's another topic. So now sonar expeditions and sonar technology on these operations. First of all, just to say that this isn't just Rockwell Collins, it was Nauticos Company, you look at nauticos.com and go to the expedition portal, you'll see all sorts of information on our expeditions. But we have sonar experts, Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, guys, WHOI, right? Are you familiar with those guys out at Woods Hole? Right, right. Yeah, we had the Woods Hole team out there. That's those guys in the back row, basically. And sonar experts all in this crowd. So it takes a team. It takes a team. When I do STEM education, I go, hey, you know what your greatest resource, your greatest asset is when you're out on these expeditions? They go, no. And I go, the ability to get along with people. Because you've got 40 people out on a small ship out there, and you've got to get along with them. You're not going to get away from them. You got to work with them. Most of the guys in the orange suits are Indonesian, Malaysian. They're all Asian. The captain is Mexican, standing there to the right of the flag, Captain Noe. And the cooks, of course, they're the most important people on the ship. Because if you have a bad cook, you're going to have a bad expedition. But, and we had our sponsor here, Alan Eustace, holding the flag on the left, and there's Dave Jordan, president of Nauticos. The lady in between them is NASA Goddard representative, ship's doctor, a journalist, and a sonar expert, all the 4 women. And so you see the guy in the dark blue on the left, he's a sonar expert, Jeff Morris. He runs Azul Mar Research. I'm to the right of him. There's Rod Bloxham, K0 Delta Alpha Sugar, used to be their Midwest director at ARRL. And so you've got all the Woods Hole guys, you've got sonar experts, you've got technical specialists, and you've got the ship's people running the ship, and a couple of engineers in the kind of the gray shirt in the back to the left of the guy with the orange suit. And the black shirted guy, these guys are from Odessa. They are Ukrainian engineers that were on the ship. And we just wonder what has happened with those guys and their families. So we do keep them in prayer. So this is the ship from 2017, the Mermaid Vigilance. A company out of Australia owns it. It flies under a Singapore flag and has a Malaysian, Indonesian crew and a Mexican captain. So there you go. There's diversity. I want to show you a little bit of the technology of sonar here. In 2002, on our first expedition, again, Rocco Collins on the fin back there, sponsoring us, Rod and I were out there, and you can see the transducers in red there. That sends out the audio tone, the pings. And on this technology, we were able to get a resolution of 1 square meter at 1,000 meters to each side. Okay, 1 square meter to 1,000 meters we could ping using the frequencies we're using. And and this is a towed array. You can see a cable at the very top. This is a towed sonar, and you fly it by wheeling in and letting out the cable. And you fly it about 80 to 100 meters off the ocean floor. And so it's pinging out a 2,000 meter swath. You have a little sonar in the middle, in the front, aiming down, called a gap filler. Because, right, your sonar is pinging out east and west, so to speak. And you want to be able to see the sonar, see what's down below you. And the idea, if any of you are like farmers out here, you cultivate, all you do is go back and forth cultivating your cornfield. Or if you're mowing your yard, you're going back and forth. That's all you do with this towed sonar. You're going back and forth about a 35-mile long swath at each time. And with these towed systems, it takes you 8 hours to turn around and get the sled going back down the line. So all you do is go back and forth. You overlap that 1,000 meters by at least 10%. So you don't have any voids. So that's the technology in 2002. Then we went out in 2006. Here's the technology from Oceaneering. And you can see it's a little bit different. The big sled in the back, there's still the transducers on the side and forward-facing sonar on the nose. It's neutrally buoyant, though. And what you see in front of you, that torpedo, is just a lead weight, but there's a cable coming down to tow it. It's also a towed array system for deep water. They're good to 6,000 meters, both these sleds. So we're towing down around 18,000 feet. And so what it does then is the cable comes down, all the fiber optics and the high voltage come down that cable. And then it's just goes over to the sled. And what that does, it eliminates strumming in the cable. Because when you're towing these towed array systems, these things are towed 3.5 miles behind the ship and 3.5 miles down. So at any one time, you've got thousands of feet of cable and they're very heavy. And you get this strumming. And that strumming comes in the effect of, again, sonar is just signal to noise, just like receiving any signal on 80 meters or 40 meters or what have you. It's all about signal to noise. And so that strumming would create noise, so you can't hear as well. Technology was still 1 square meter at 1,000 meters with this technology 4 years later. This is 2017 technology. Autonomous underwater vehicles. This is the Woods Hole guy, the Hui guys. So this is the Remus 6000. You can see that it has fins back there that they wobble back and forth horizontally, vertically. It navigates on its own, has a Kalman filter navigational system in there. It has satellite communication, GPS, and you can see the transducers on the side, and it also has high resolution cameras. And of course, it's battery driven. So that's the technology, all autonomous now. You don't have to fly it. You just program it and tell it where to go. And it goes down there and completes its mission. When the batteries get low, you drop a weight and it comes up to the surface and dials and says on satellite, SATCOM, and tells you where it is from the GPS. And you go and get it. So a lot different. The technology is such now that they can do 10 centimeters at 1,000 meters in resolution. So you get the synthetic aperture sonar, and you can vary pulse width and height and amplitude and frequency, and you get a better resolution pinging off of the targets. This is the ship. It's an ocean service vehicle, Mermaid Vigilance. The torpedo, Remus, is kept in this cage back in the back. And there's 2 other equipment cages there. And then the rest is just basketball and picnic area back in the back. Okay, so it's 1,600 miles. When you go on an expedition like this, you're traveling at about 10 knots. And so to get down to Howland Island, it takes you about 9 days just to get down there. So you can see why it's expensive. You got fuel, you got all the equipment, you've got all the engineers, you've got all the ship people. And so it gets very expensive to do one of these operations. Each expedition, about $2.5 million. And we've done 3. So there you go. So there's Howland and Baker along the equator there in the international date line. Okay, so you might wonder, how in the world does it know where it is when it's underwater? Because GPS doesn't work underwater. Did any of you have that question? Yeah. Well, this is the answer. That silver container there is a transponder. And the 2 balls, the yellow balls there, are just glass globes. And they have a strobe and a satellite comm on that also. And what the ship does is that there's a rope that goes, or a line. There's no rope. On a ship, it's a line, right? So you have a line going from the 2 yellow globes down to the transponder, the silver columnar thing there. And then there's another rope, a line that goes down to a weight. And so you shove those things overboard, and then they have an acoustic modem, and you go over it several times and triangulate, and you picket fence those transponders along the way. So with the Kalman filter and the pinging down below of the Woods Hole torpedo, Remus 6000, it can triangulate against the transponders, because we tell it then they can program Remus to say where those transponders are in lat long. So it knows where it is. And then these tubes, each one of these transponders costs $50K. Well, there you go. We lost 2 of them because Woods Hole brought out a couple of glass balls in there where they cracked, and they couldn't get them up. They didn't have enough buoyancy to get them up off the bottom when they let the weight go. So we lost $100,000 just in transponders out there on that expedition. But fortunately, we had enough. So here's a launch sequence. This is called the Launch and Recover System, or a LARS. And I'm just going to pedal through here. You can see that Remus 6000's up there. It's on a hoist. And then you start letting it down into the water. You can see that it's neutrally buoyant over there. And here's the Woods Hole guys. There's a weight there that they have attached to that sled, and they drop it overboard. So when they drop it overboard, you don't want to drive the sled down to the bottom of the ocean at 18,000 feet with its batteries, because you want to conserve that battery. So they have it fall down. Basically, it's dragged down by the weights, and then they drop the weight, and then it can do its mission. And then when it's ready to come up, they have another weight, they can drop it, and you can either propel it to the surface, or you can let it come on up and float to the surface. And that's when it calls home. So that's how the system works. And it worked very well, flawlessly. So what happens now is that you bring it up for battery replacement every 24 hours. And you charge the batteries, replace the batteries, charge the batteries. Well, these guys, these 3 men were analyzing the sonar that we just collected the data for off of Remus 6000. So the first guy on the left is, is a guy named Tom Detweiler. Now, Tom Detweiler was the operations manager on Titanic with Bob Ballard. He's the one who found Titanic. I mean, he's the one who went where to look, and also was on duty when they found it. But Bob Ballard gets a credit, of course. It was his operation, right? But he's the operation manager. He started his career scuba diving with Jacques Cousteau on the Calypso. So he's been around. Both the 2 outside guys were nuclear submariners, they're Navy. And the story goes is that when they were going up around the North Pole, over to Murmansk and that kind of thing, and they would turn on their sonar and look for a Titanic as they were going by through the North Sea there. So they had a little help, clandestine help from the US Navy to help find that Titanic. Jeff Morris in the middle is Azul Mar. That's his company. He's a sonar expert. That's what he does for a living. He teaches it. And then Dave Jordan, the president of Nauticos, also is a submarine guy. He's officer on deck and what have you for nuclear submarine. Okay, so what did we find? Well, a lot of geology, when you put these together, this is a landslide at 18,000 feet. Might have happened a million years ago. No one knows, but this is a landslide. You can see where it broke loose on the left and just slid down the mount there, the seamount. There's a mosaic of it. On a sonar, anytime you see white, that's really a hard object. It's a reflection back. So what you're seeing here, when you see a peak on those ones in the middle, that's actually the profile of the like the volcanic geology sticking up out of the bottom of the ocean, right? So that's why you have to keep going back and forth, so you have to fill in the shadows there so you don't miss anything. Here's another one. This one we called shredded wheat. Now what this is a big coil of wire, like a transoceanic type wire. And probably the wood has rotted away, but there's coils of wire there, and we called it shredded wheat. Was it kicked off a ship, just thrown overboard, or did it fall off overboard by accident? No one knows. Here's one on low resolution, initially at 1,000 meters. In the square box there, you can see you have a blob there. But then when you go to high resolution, you see here this long pencil-like looking, that's a wooden mast. Now, what's a wooden mast doing down there in the middle of the ocean, out of the middle of nowhere? Who knows? Maybe it's Captain Cook's, but we weren't looking for one, so we didn't stop to go find out. And this is an interesting piece. You can see what we saw initially, a real good return. When we did a high resolution on it, you see this, it's a metal piece that looks like something's been ripped off of a ship. And you can see its shadow. It's actually sticking up. You're over the top of it, and you can see its shadow looking like, like maybe a penguin or something, I don't know what it is, like a crane or something. But anyway, it's that real sharp object, and it looks like it's probably been ripped off, and who knows? There wasn't a lot of World War II action back then, but, maybe there was something that came along and strafed a ship or what have you. And, we don't know what it is. And so then what you do is you put together the mosaics for each one of these expeditions. So in 2002 mosaic, you start running all these together, and any dark spots you hit are volcanic activity. Down here, the dot in the middle is Howland Island. So you can see here what we've added. There's 2 expeditions right there, and you can see we were northwest of the island. And then Ted Waite came out, and he did some more sonar work all to the west of Howland Island. And you can see how the volcanic activity, all these burnt marks are volcanic burn marks on the bottom of the ocean. All the and Howland Island, is basically a volcano. And you can see some of the ripple effect all around the seamount for Howland Island. Now, what I'm showing you here, then, the green is our original egg. This is what we said. This has the highest probability of where that airplane would be. And it isn't there. We go, oh, well, you screwed up, right? But no, we have a decision tree that was created, that we've created, and we had groups of pilots analyze the flight scenario, and for every flight decision, key point, we said, what would you do? What's the highest probability? And assign probabilities to their decision making. And we said, okay, you're the pilot on this. This is what you would do. If you go down that path, this is where it takes you. But there's other paths. Less likely, but probable. They're non-zero. There's, okay, well, like when you do an offset to come into your line of position in navigation, you could either offset north or you can offset south. And so maybe they offset south on their navigation solution. So it doesn't mean that it isn't out there. It just means that they made a different decision. And maybe one of those was to turn south to their line of position instead of north to offset. And I can get into that, and I get into that in another presentation. Anyway, this whole area we've searched is the same area the size of Connecticut. So there you go. At 2 knots, you travel at 2 knots when you're doing towed array. So you can walk that at 2 knots. So it's very slow, but thank goodness now we have autonomous vehicles that speed up that process. Okay. Now I just wanted to show you a little bit of amateur radio here. I'm going to also look at my time, 7:30. So, right. So it's 8:30 your turn?
Yes.
Or is that, okay.
No, it's
so
8:30.
How long do I have? How long do I have?
As long as you want.
Yeah, I bet those guys are saying, no.
Yeah,
So, okay.
Max of another 30 minutes.
Max. Okay. All right. Well, the reason why Rockwell Collins sponsored this is for STEM education. they donated our labor. We didn't have to spend vacation. Rocco Collins said STEM education is valuable and we want to have you out there. And they gave our labor in kind to Seaword, SEAWRD. That's Nautico's foundation, educational foundation for doing oceanographic and engineering education to students. So what we did, I might have to skip the video, but what we did is we're sitting over there. Here's K0DAS, Rod Bloxham. Behind the gray-haired guy back there, that's Brian McCoy, K0YSQ, and myself, and then Sally Smith, the NASA Goddard curriculum development STEM person from NASA Goddard Flight Center. And I've got an ICOM 7000 and Alpha 91 amplifier, and the antenna is a horizontal vertical. I'll show you that in a minute. But what we would do is I would speak and it would go over HF on 20 meters because 20 meters wasn't open to the States at that time in the morning. And so we had a clear channel all the way up to Hawaii. And Gary, KH6GMP, would put us into Echolink, and it would Echolink out to Woodbridge, Virginia, to Antietam Elementary School. And this is Kathy, KM4TAY. She was one of the ARRL teachers, STEM teachers, and she has a fourth and fifth grade STEM class, TAG, Talented and Gifted Kids, and she has Echolink on her cell phone. And so when I would talk, it would go 1,600 miles to Hawaii. It would travel another 4,000 or so miles over to Virginia, and then it would come out on Echolink on her cell phone in audio. And so they would ask us questions live to the expedition, and then we would answer them back. So that was the link. So anyway, if we have time later, I could show it, but this is a video here. Okay, the other cool thing is that we did communications with the space station. So times I would be on talking to Commander Shane McCullough, Shane McCullough, good Irish guy. And then Rod would operate the station, and he talked to Peggy Whitson, who was from Iowa. So she was the one who stayed out there the longest of any female out through the September, and we were out in March. And here's Shane over here, the commander. We also gave crew members the opportunity to speak with the astronauts. So like the Ukrainian guys, they would speak Russian to the Russian Valerie up there on RA-1 ISS. And so we had a lot of fun with that. But on this day, it was Women's International Day. We had the 4 women on board talk with Peggy Whitson, who was the astronaut, of course. So I will show some of this, not all of it, but I'll show you some of this. And have any of you guys worked the space station?
Some of us have through satellite and through, or not satellite, but through the repeater up there and direct at times too.
Right. It's just a real thrill, you know. And of course, we're out in the middle of nowhere, and so we have a clear path. There's no problem capturing their receiver, right? We know they're ephemeris. We're working with NASA down in Houston Space Center, and so we know when their flights are and when their time off is, and so we get on there and we have a full 9 minutes. You know, we have horizon to horizon with the astronauts up there. So let's just, can you hear this, Larry? Just a second.
Yeah, we hear it fine.
Okay.
Oh, real good. We've got a lot of people here waiting to talk to you. Is this Shane? Operator here is Rod. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Shane. We have Peggy, Tama, and the Russian crewmates are here as well.
Okay, well, the first person I want to pass it to is John. He'd like to say a few words to you, and then we have 4 ladies here who'd like to talk to Peggy, and we'll run them through one at a time.
Sounds great.
Okay, here's John.
Hey, Sean, this is John Thompson. I'm calling, I'm a West Point grad, class of 1965.
Oh, that's great. We're just everywhere. We're even off the planet and out in the middle of the ocean, so that's awesome.
That's what I wanted to mention, Sean. Of course, I was going to the University of Texas getting my master's in aerospace engineering when you were born. But I just wanted to mention, I think it's most appropriate particularly on the 1st of April, that West Point and Army is involved from outer space to the bottom of the ocean. And I think it's also very appropriate to say today, go Army, beat Navy.
Oh, that's great. It's always good to hear that and say it's a go Army, beat Navy. Thanks, John.
You bet, Shane. I'm passing it on now.
Hi, Shane. This is Pam Geddes. I'm not sure, you said Peggy's there as well?
Yeah, this is Peggy. I'm here.
Hi, Peggy. I'm the doctor with the research team, and I just wanted to ask you what medical procedures you guys have in place for any accidents or injuries or illnesses that occur on the space station. We're in a pretty remote location on Earth, and we try to be prepared on the ship, but I wanted to see what you guys had up on the space station.
Well, we're all trained as crew medical officers. We have capability to do, we have AED and capability to do that that level of emergency. However, in general, we luckily don't have to deal with that much. In case of an emergency, we could always return to the Earth on the Soyuz. So it's pretty good.
Great. I also want to tell you I did my training at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, and I saw that you were nearby down in Galveston, so just wanted to say hi.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's very cool to be able to say hi to you guys, and you take care of all these folks on the ship.
I'm gonna have to pop in and pop out on that, so to get it to stop. But there we go. Yeah, so it's a blast, to say the least, to be able to talk with them there and then get the crewmen to all be able to participate in that is really amazing. And on one of those, we had a Polish seaman talking to the Russian Valerie, and so they're talking in Russian. And when he gets done, this Polish seaman goes, "Never in my wildest dreams would I ever think a poor Polish seaman would ever be talking to a Russian cosmonaut." So he was just thrilled. Okay, so amateur radio, there's my station. That's about 70 feet in the air up on the castle of the ship. There's me on the left, and there's Rod down below there. We're working back into Cedar Rapids to our buddies and stuff, and Brian there and all helping to get it all integrated. I like to run CW. You might see a little bungee cord by the file cabinet in my chair. That's to keep me from rolling backwards or falling backwards. These rogue waves will come through, and if you're not lashed in, you could, what we do, you can become a turtle. You're just four legs, you're just arms and legs just up in the air. So you always have to lash yourself and secure everything down. You notice the radio has bungees on it and eyelets, and the amplifier. You don't want that stuff flying around. Some of the listing is 10, 15 degrees when you're going back and forth on these waves. I'm going to show you the antenna. So I brought my stepper vertical, the big IR, and we couldn't mount it vertically because there's so much HF verticals there's verticals on the top of the mast on the ship up above the castle. So we said, well, let's just mount it horizontally. We got salt water here, for crying out loud. So we mounted this vertical horizontally out off the ship. And, if you're over salt water, that's like having 10 dB. It's just unbelievable, the kind of signal strengths we were putting in. And at Gray Line in the States, at 1:30 in the morning, Gray Line would hit into the Caribbean, And so, of course, they give you 5.9. I go, hey, what's our real signal strength? Oh, you're 10/9. 100 watts and running off over salt water. We're just blasting away on gray line. But so we had another antenna off the forecastle deck up in the center there, the forecastle deck. We did have the packet for the pack tour for email, but we didn't need it. We just had that as backup. And you can see 145-800, that's the ISS. We did have some issues. We put a counterpoise wire down the side of the ship to make sure it resonated well on 40 meters. And it arced like crazy. It was just arcing. And so that was our SWR problem generator there. You can see the black mark from that. So love to CW. This is what it looks like from Howland Island to the rest of the world. And worked some good DX, Nepal, Macau, over to V5. Namibia from there is about as far as you can get, 9G5 and Ghana. But I marked the gray line here. And so whenever we hit gray line, I could go bing, 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 right down that line through Europe. But the rest of Europe is already in sun. And so I could never get Western Europe. Or Eastern, well, no, Western Europe. It looks like Western. This is Western Europe. So Spain, Portugal, England, no way. But anything west of there, at gray line, you could work right down the line and through Europe. It's pretty cool. So I have a final video, but I can skip that for Q&A because there's probably more questions. Kind of for your time wise.
Okay, let's do this. Gary's got a question.
Yeah, Tom, I'm just curious why, when you showed that picture of Howland Island, it just seemed like there's nothing there. What was it? There's some kind of refueling setup there or whatever? What was the importance of that? It just looked like a rock in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, that's a real good question, Gary. And the answer, if I took that slide out, because you just don't know how much detail to get into on these things. But there were some huts that were there, and the U.S. Navy had carved out a runway on Howland Island, and so they had 3 runways on Howland there, and you could say, well, what is the U.S. Navy paying for an a landing strip for a commercial venture by a private citizen, right? Well, why do you think what's the answer to that?
Military.
Well, yeah. The war was starting. They were starting to be fearful of Japan at that point, wanted a presence. I got another quick question.
Exactly.
The big search these days is for MD370. And there's folks that have claimed that they've used radio signals or they've recreated, using propagation, that they believe they have a better idea of where MD370 is. I know it's a little off topic, but have you heard or know anything about that?
Yeah, I've got a book about that thick on 370, MH370. And, we looked at that too. And, they're doing what they can. But I mean, are you talking about the latest whisper stuff coming out of Australia?
Yeah, exactly.
Combining all the whisper.
Right. That was on Australia 60 Minutes, highlighted it, and a few other things.
Yeah, that's a lot of media, to be able to do that. More power to them if they do. But the initial one was the pinging just on what they had on the transponder, not the transponder, but the pinging off what they could not shut down, what the pilot could not shut down. It was automatically off the satellite. So they drew this arc and said, well, it's got to be, kind of in this area. And they've done millions of miles. But, that ocean is huge. I mean, we were just carving out 2,000 square miles. right? For these patterns. And, that's hugely expensive, and to do millions of miles like that, that's incredible amount of space that they did. And now, of course, they're done with it, and that now all the stuff is washing up in Madagascar. So now they're looking at ocean currents, right? And seeing where it would float. And we've done that too. I threw a bottle off the ship, and you're not supposed to know that. EPA, don't tell anybody at EPA, but you can't throw plastic, but they allowed me to throw a bottle in off the ship. So I put a note in a bottle, put some orange streamers on it, capped it, threw it out, just to see, okay, what kind of current do they have? If they float, if the airplane floats, which way would it go? Well, I got a letter about 8 months later from Tango 30, a Bayang Island out by Tarawa, north of Tarawa, from a guy named Taitibo. And he writes me a letter and says, I am none other than the founder of the bottle. So it went due west. And there's a 1 knot current due west that flows out around from Howland Island. So when the plane hits, the big question is float time. And we're looking at that really hard now because it could be that we were right and it floated out, right? That's one possibility. And how long would it float? Elgin Long says, hey, there's no seam. This isn't a hermetically sealed aircraft, but you do have empty fuel tanks. So how long would it take for the fuel tanks to fill before that thing was down? Because all the currents are surfacey. They're just surface currents. You get down below like 150 feet, there's not a lot of current. And you get down to 18,000 feet and there's no current whatsoever.
Well, a lot of it too depends on when the plane hits the water, how much did it break up or break apart, or how fast did it hit it? And there's so much involved with that. So are you guys coming up with new theories to go search again?
Oh, well, not new theories, but search areas using the decision tree. And these latest experiments in 2020 off of Delmarva Peninsula gave us a lot of good information because we were using the actual Bendix radios and receivers and the transmitters and what have you on that aircraft with a Western Electric 13 transmitter and a Bendix RA1 receivers, DF loops, Bendix DF loops. And then over that, we had a Collins 95S1 SDR receiver that could measure signal strength in tenths of a dB. And so we had that with GPS, and we could measure signal strength versus distance very, very accurately over the ocean. And then also we came up with new data about the DF loop and why could she not get a minimum and what's going on there. So there's a lot that we did discover a lot, but this float time is the one where we've got guys in swimming pools with jugs, with vent tube size vents. They're doing glug tests. We have another guy doing just the real weight mass of the aircraft and all the things in it and how long it would take to fill. But you're right, Larry. How if she was at 1,000 feet, she said that, you saw that, and your engine sputter, and you throw down the mic, and you trim out the aircraft for a dead stick landing, and you've got 1 minute. And before you hit the ocean, you've got to stall that thing out. You got to keep your kinetic energy up and then stall it out just above the ocean and pancake it in. Nobody knows how well she did that. We do have an article, a C-45, which is basically a Beech 18, where guys bailed out at New York. And it was on autopilot, and it flew out over Lake Ontario. And so this Beech 18 flies out over Lake Ontario, runs out of gas, and crashes in Lake Ontario. And they found that aircraft. And you look at the pictures of it, and it's not too bad. It's missing its vertical stabilizers. It has a hole above the left side of the wing root. And the cowlings are missing, or the propellers are bent and the cowlings are, banged up and missing. So that's not too bad for a plane that didn't have any pilot.
We've got a question from Mark K8LSB. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. Hey, Mark.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. My question was pretty much answered by what you just said. I was going to ask, what's next? Is there another expedition planned, or what does the future look like for this?
Well, absolutely. Everybody wants to go out again, and we'd like to get the float time answer. We need to do that. And we use our decision tree to go down the tree where, okay, if you didn't make that north offset decision, then it's probably offset to the south or a direct route in, expecting to get a bearing. So we'll just go down the next highest probability area and say, okay, what areas are left? Because there's some areas now that they would fly over the island, if they took a certain route, and you can just discount those all totally. So, it's still a tough problem. It's still very expensive. Our sponsor from last time was Alan Eustace, and he's the guy who went up to 136,000 feet in a spacesuit, and they dropped him a few years ago. You can see it at the Udvar Hazy Museum in the basement down there, the bottom floor, where his spacesuit is there, hanging there. But, he's an adventurer. I mean, who wants to get taken up to 136,000 feet and let go, right? So but he did. He broke the sound barrier with his body. But anyway, he sponsored it last time. He's willing to put some money in. He doesn't want to pay all $2.5 million. And so, we're looking for sponsors. And once we get some more investors, then we'll make plans and get on out, find a ship and a crew and go.
I have another question. With these days, we're so spoiled by using GPS, and prior to that, they were using low RANs and other stuff. How did she find Howland Island? How did she navigate to the area where it was?
Yeah, so that's the Fred Noonan question, right? He's the chief navigator. He's the one who opened up the Pan Am Clipper fleet for Pan Am with the China Clippers. They'd fly from Alameda, Honolulu, Wake, Midway, Guam, and on up to Hong Kong. But it's just like Christopher Columbus did. Do you see that one? You see this?
Mm-hmm.
Star navigation was what they had. He had a Polaris in that with a bubble octant in the back of that aircraft, and those windows are optically corrected, so they're flat. And what you do then is there's charts where every star, there's a point on Earth directly underneath that star from any point on Earth, and there's charts that have that. So if it's Polaris or if it's the sun or any of them, you have that point. Well, and then you're somewhere out here flying towards Howland Island, and you take a measurement to that star and you can do the triangulation. Now navigators have to take into account the rotation of the Earth from the time that they took the measurement and all that. But that's basically all it is. And you get this triangulation, and you're flying at 78 degrees true towards that island. So you're not on this whole circle. That's that dotted line circle there. You're on one piece of it. And if you strike a line, it's a straight line. It's such a small area. That's a straight line. And as you're flying along, you take 3 of those shots, and then you advance them to where they all cross at the same time. And that's your position. Now that's, again, plus or minus. And Fred Noonan said he could get plus or minus 10 miles real easily. That's maybe his bragging or whatever, but certainly we were doing star navigation on the ship just for the fun of it. And we could get within 5 miles of our position, just us guys screwing around, shooting the stars and doing the work. So that's one way. But then also as you approach the island, I mentioned the sun line of position. So he takes the sun line of position once the sun is up, and he draws a sun line, and that's that circular line if it was around the whole Earth. So you got a sun line, and it's perpendicular to the azimuth of the sun. Okay, so in this case, 67 degrees. That's why she said she was on the line 157337. That's the line of position. Then he advances that line through his charts and draws another line so they're parallel. And then he measures that on his nav charts, and so he knows the distance. Cool. So you have distance and time. Now, the question is then on landfall navigation, it's not any different than the Pilgrims going to Plymouth Rock. If you're coming across the Atlantic and you want to land at Plymouth, you don't sail directly towards Plymouth Rock, because if you do, you may hit the coast and there's nothing there. Now, do you turn north or do you turn south? You don't know, right? So you intentionally offset either north or south. And so you intentionally offset by 2 times your air, that you calculated air. Anyway, you offset, and then when you go that amount of time, then you turn on the line of position, because you know, like if you offset north, you know the island must be south of you. Or if you offset south, you turn north because you know the island is north of you. And that's the kind of thing that he was developing with Pan Am. Now, Pan Am also had a Luderitz DF systems on those islands. And they turned out to be very good. So he got pretty used to getting bearings by radio from the operators that were operating off of Midway and Cure, Midway and Wake, Midway, Wake, and Guam, so that they would give them a bearing and then they would just fly the bearing on in. So that always brings up the question when she says, take a bearing on us. Well, they really couldn't do that. And the reason being their HF direction finding was on Howland Island. The batteries ran down during the night. So they could not take a bearing and give it to them from Howland Island. So then at 8 o'clock, she says, well, you transmit and I'll take a bearing on you. And she did, but she couldn't get a minimum. See that? So, okay. So the question we had was, did Fred Noonan do an offset, or did he expect that he'd get that bearing and he'd just fly straight in like he did for Midway or Wake or what have you? No one knows, right? So it's interesting.
Let's see if we have any other questions from anybody.
I have a question. On a map like you're showing now, where was the Itasca relative to those islands?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually have a picture of now if I can back out to the find the picture of Itasca here. That's the question. You can see I could have kept going on all different subjects, but oh, didn't I put that in? They were just stationed, less than half a mile off the island to the west-northwest. You can tell from the picture that I might have it in the backup files all the way down here, but look real quick. There it is. Here's a picture from that morning when she disappeared. There's Itasca right there. And you see the black smoke? They were doing that on purpose. And they were putting black smoke out there. But the problem was it wasn't going straight up. It was laying out over the water. Well, that can create a problem of blocking out your target. Either blocking out Howland Island if they're coming out that way. So that was a problem.
When they went down, did they broadcast a mayday or something saying they were going down or they were crashing?
You saw what that was. It said, we are on the line of position. She gave them all the information she knew. We are on the line of position 157337. We'll repeat on 6210. Well, in our UI, Itasca says listening on 6210. She says, we're running north and south, and then wait. That wait was it. She's done. So, and they were listening on 6210. She never came up. She never came up to that QRG, even though they were listening for her there. So, and they kept calling on all frequencies, 3105, 6210, 7500. They were calling, they were listening, nothing.
So if they went down in that area, how do you recreate with ocean currents and all that from, what is it, 80 years ago, 90 years ago? I mean, how can you possibly recreate from where the ocean currents were or predict what they were way back then?
Yeah, well, they're actually very predictable, just like the trades are when you're sailboating out in the Atlantic over to Europe or Africa over to the Caribbean. The trades along that equator, you're only 48 minutes north. So you're 48 miles north of the equator, and all of them are going, your trades are all going west. You know, this is the doldrums that Cook and all those guys, Magellan and Cook and all, hated this area because you wouldn't get any storms and wind and all that. You would just have these currents, and you were just at the mercy of the ocean there.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Any other questions for Tom? Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for presenting to us fascinating information. Makes me want to go out and read a book on Amelia Earhart.
There you go. I recommended 2 here. So again, Amelia Earhart, Mystery Solved, Elgin Long. That's the pilot navigator view. Okay, and more technical. And The Sound of Wings by Mary Lovell. If you want to get into George Putnam and the publicity, you know, all her comings and goings, I guess, if you will, in the aviation, Bendix air races that were going on, the other women, the 99ers.
I guess I have
back
one more
then.
question. Is there another group too, or have there been other groups too that have been looking kind of like the way you guys are looking, you know, but not using radio, using whatever guesses to search an area?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, you know, one of our sponsors in the 06 was Ted Waite, who founded Gateway Computer.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just, once we didn't find it on that one, we actually had a medical emergency on the ship. But anyway, he went out with his own ship then for 6 months, and he went to the west. That was that big swath west of Helen. And he gave us all the sonar data, but he didn't find it. So, and you know, he really didn't cooperate very much because he overlapped some of the area we had already looked. He wasted some time. There's another person, and now he's not doing it anymore. He gave up. There's another person named Timmer who has gone west of there, but he paid to have a more of a bathymeter kind of a sonar from the surface, and it's not detailed enough to be able to tell. You know, you just don't have enough data there to be able to see an aircraft from the surface of the ocean with all those thermal layers. I mean, that's how submarines hide, right? In cold water, hot water, thermal layers. That's how the submarines escape depth charging. So his data is not very good, but he's still interested. You know, there are people interested in getting out and doing this.
Is that whole area of the ocean 3 miles deep, or is there some that's much shallower than that too?
Well, it's mostly 18,000 feet of soft sand with those volcanoes burst in there, and of which Howland and Baker are of seamounts. There are some seamounts there. And, you know, supposedly if she got within, 3 miles, if she said, wait, oh, I see the island, but she didn't. But had she landed, on that seamount, that would be very, very hard to see with a sonar because it's almost vertical at that point. Sonar doesn't work that way.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Fascinating information. Just before we close the meeting out, just going to remind everybody the HCRA raffle. The next Share the Knowledge is February 21st. Volunteer ARL volunteers on the air. I know Harold's are you still here, Harold? The Harold, there you are. You're big
It's blinking.
paper chaser there. Have you been working volunteers on the air?
Yes, and I have a question for Ray.
Unmute yourself, Ray.
For example, I've worked quite a few. I worked South Carolina on 40 today, sideband. Am I now done with him? If I see him again, do I contact him again to make more and more contacts with W1AW, or is it a one-shot deal like most contests?
Go ahead and unmute yourself, Ray.
Yeah, my mouse is giving me a hissy fit. Yeah, you could contact that same W1AW. You could do 40 meters on CW, RIDI, FT8, any mode that you want. And you could do other bands. So you can work them as much as you want.
But I'm not going to work them again on 20 because I've already got them, correct?
Well, if you work them on sideband on 20, and then you go to FT8 and you see them on 20, then you can work them. Yeah, you could do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, that's something I got to start doing, to start chasing. Okay. Any
Hey, Larry.
other last minute announcements or anything? Go ahead,
Hey,
Tom.
Larry. Hey, guys. Minnesota QSO party is tomorrow. And so work the guys. I'm in Fillmore County. I'm the only ham in Fillmore County that's on HF. So if you're a county hunter, I'm the guy. And I'll be operating November 0 Victor. 1 by 1.
All right. Well,
and
since most of us are
morning.
probably going to be in our homes because it's too cold to go outside.
Yeah,
So
see, what
maybe
else you
we'll
gonna
turn
do?
the radios on and turn the amps on and go Tom hunting.
Yeah, well, I'm going on 80 first and then 40 and then up from there. And
Tom, will you be on CW?
Yeah, I'll be on CW around 35, 40 at 8 o'clock. And then sideband on 38, I don't know, 40 maybe or something like that, and 3810. And then 40, 7040 around there, 40 kilohertz up from the bottom. And then sideband will be around 7225 or so.
Cool.
I think we should be able to do the coast. And then 20 meters, same way, 40 kilohertz and up in the phone band.
Okay. Well, hopefully if anybody from the group here works you, they'll let you know that that they saw you the night before on your presentation.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyways, thank you again. Thank everybody for joining us tonight, and hopefully everybody got the message, and hopefully next month we'll be back to in person again. Gary, what's our speaker for March? I don't remember. Oh, where's Gary? Do you know our speaker for March, Ken? I don't have the information up. All right, well, it'll be in zero beat, and it's on the hcra.org. I know it looks like my weather station just hit 0.0 for the weather, for the temperature. So everybody have a good night. Stay safe tomorrow if you have to go out, and have a good evening. And hopefully we'll hear you guys on the air. 10-meter contest, Minnesota QSO party, and whatever else may be on. And Bouvet is going to be on very soon too. So that's something to get really excited for. So everybody stay safe, have a good weekend, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
7-3, everybody.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank
Great
you, Larry.
presentation.
Thanks.